In the hallowed halls of the Galactic Academy, tension could slice through the air like a blade. Alien students from 100 worlds gathered to learn peace, until one draconian cub growled at his teacher. The room froze. Then a human stood up, locked eyes with the beast, and spoke just one word: apologize. What happened next didn't just silence the classroom. It shifted how the galaxy saw humanity itself. If this story already has you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps more people find these tales. Subscribe for more incredible human stories in the galaxy. And hey, share this video with a friend who loves sci-fi twists as much as you do. The Galactic Academy wasn't just a school. It was a monument, stone and steel threaded with light from stars so distant they were almost myth. Here, under ceilings that shimmered like liquid sunlight, students from 100 worlds gathered to do the impossible: learn harmony. Imagine the vastest United Nations hall you've ever seen, then multiply it by centuries of alien architecture and pride. That was the Academy. In one corridor, crystalline beings walked like living sculptures, catching and splitting the light. Alongside them padded furred cubs from empires forged in fire and blood. Sapling-like creatures swayed gently, their skin glowing with tranquil colors that pulsed in rhythm as if breathing music. It was breathtaking, yet the beauty carried tension. Because peace is fragile. Every species brought their histories, their grudges, their instincts, and all of it pressed into the classrooms where young minds were meant to unlearn war. Into this mix came humans, newcomers, fledglings, a species barely a century beyond breaking light's barrier. To some, humans were curiosities. To others, unwelcome intruders. And on one unforgettable day, in Classroom 7 Alpha, a lesson meant to teach peace almost collapsed into chaos. Humanity's presence in the Academy was never simple. To the older civilizations, humans were the upstarts, new kids in a galaxy where others had ruled empires before Earth had even discovered fire. The Zetheran cubs whispered among themselves, their voices like wind brushing tall grass. The crystalline Catherine younglings glanced at the humans with curiosity, half scientific, half condescending. And the towering draconians? They regarded humanity with something closer to disdain. Why were they here at all? That question hovered in the minds of many. Humanity hadn't built fleets vast enough to rival the old empires. They didn't wield weapons that bent physics with ease. They hadn't lived through millennia of conquest. But the truth was, humans had already left their mark. Reports whispered of human mercenaries who could end wars without firing a single shot. Explorers who survived where others perished. Diplomats who could disarm with words sharper than any blade. Still, to share a classroom with them, that was harder for some species to swallow, especially for those who measured worth in power, dominance, and ancestry. In Room 7 Alpha, the unease simmered. Humanity's place was tolerated, but never guaranteed, and one draconian student was about to make that clear. The lesson that day was about diplomacy, how fragile compromises held star systems together. Instructor Vexathala, her silver-flecked skin shimmering softly, spoke with the precision of someone who had balanced treaties sharper than knives. The students listened, or at least pretended to. But under the surface, tension brewed. Kareem, the human seated near the back, adjusted the neural translator at his ear. He wasn't the loud type. He didn't need to be. Every note he wrote was careful, his focus steady, as though he carried a weight invisible to the others. Nearby, Shilan, another human, scribbled, her stylus hovering in quiet rhythm. But across the room, the unease thickened. Zeroth, a young draconian with scales like fresh-forged steel, smoldered with impatience. His kind had ruled empires before humans had even drawn maps of their seas. To him, this class wasn't a place for equals. It was an insult. His tail flicked against the floor, a restless metronome to his rising temper. And in that charged silence, every species' instincts hummed. The saplings swayed nervously, their glowing hues dimming. The cubs flattened their ears. Even the crystalline students shifted, refracting light in anxious patterns. Everyone could feel it. Something was about to break. It began with a low rumble, like stone grinding against stone. Zeroth leaned forward, his molten eyes fixed on the humans. His voice cracked through the air, sharp as a blade. The primitives should listen in silence. The room froze. The insult hung there, heavy, almost physical. Students shifted uncomfortably, their instincts urging them to recoil. Even among species used to draconian pride, such open contempt was rare. Vexathala raised a calming hand, her voice gentle but edged. Every being here has earned their place, student Zeroth. But his nostrils flared, sulphurous smoke curling into the air. His pride was unyielding. Merit? He spat. These mammals barely qualify as sentient. My clutch sibling was denied entry so this pet could take his place. The words struck harder than any blow. A wave of anger rippled through the class, even among those who doubted humanity's worth. And yet, Kareem sat still, his gaze steady, as if the insults were sparks bouncing off stone. Then Zeroth rose. His shadow stretched across the room, dark and immense. His growl was no longer adolescent bravado. It was the deep, ancient echo of predators who once ruled the night. The storm had broken. The growl rolled through the classroom, vibrating in the walls, rattling nerves. Oxygen levels ticked higher as the Academy's systems reacted to the rising aggression. Even Vexathala, seasoned diplomat, patient instructor, felt a flicker of fear. Draconian adolescence was volatile, dangerous, unpredictable. Then, cutting through the chaos, came a single word. Apologize. The sound wasn't loud, it wasn't shouted, but it landed with absolute weight. Every head turned. Kareem had risen from his seat, not tall, not physically imposing, but radiating a stillness that pulled every gaze toward him. Zeroth whipped his head around, pupils narrowing to slits. You dare command me, mammal? Kareem's reply was calm, almost soft. I'm giving you a choice. Apologize now, or I'll make you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Shalene's stylus hovered mid-air, forgotten. The crystalline students stopped refracting light, freezing in place. Even the sapling's glow dimmed to a single pale blue. Zeroth laughed, a harsh metallic rasp. Make me, primitive. But beneath that laughter something faltered. Because Kareem wasn't bluffing. His stillness was not submission, it was the quiet confidence of someone who never made empty threats. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone felt it. Zeroth's laughter rang hollow, echoing off the walls like broken metal. His kind only understood one language, dominance. And yet, as he stared at Kareem, instinct whispered a warning. This human is not prey. Kareem didn't clench his fists. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stood there, his presence heavy, as if violence was a language he spoke fluently but chose not to use. His eyes carried no rage, only certainty. That was what unsettled the draconian most. Certainty, cold and unyielding. Your people conquered with technology, Kareem said evenly. Mine survived by being better at violence than anything that hunted us. We had no shields, no plasma, just rocks, sticks, and each other. Do you really want to see which method worked best? The words were simple, almost casual. But to every species in that room, they landed like a seismic tremor. Humanity had always seemed small, fragile, untested. Now, in Kareem, they saw something far older, something primal. Zeroth's chest rose and fell faster. The predator in him, honed by bloodlines of conquest, recognized something terrifying. Here stood another predator, one that didn't roar, didn't posture, but waited with the patience of something that had always survived. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The classroom felt like a battlefield before the first strike. Every species present could sense it. This was more than a student quarrel. It was a clash between histories, between survival stories written in blood and fire. Zeroth's growl faltered. His scales no longer gleamed with defiance but dulled with hesitation. The primal voice within him, the one that had kept his ancestors alive in savage jungles, spoke clearly. This human is dangerous. Kareem's tone never wavered. There was no triumph, no malice, only a lesson wrapped in quiet steel. Sometimes, he whispered, the best way to keep the peace is to be very, very good at war. Those words didn't just strike Zeroth, they struck everyone. The saplings pulsed with a deep, awed green. The crystalline beings shimmered with fractured light. Even Shalane, usually steady, sat frozen, stylus trembling in her hand. Instructor Vexathala, who had read reports of human mercenaries and explorers, now saw it with her own eyes. This was why humans had earned their place, not through age-old empires or advanced fleets, but through something rawer, survival sharpened into instinct, and instinct tempered into power. The silence stretched, heavy as stone. Then at last Zeroth's shoulders sagged. His molten eyes flickered, predator's pride cracking under something older, fear. His voice broke as he muttered, I apologize. To Instructor Vexathala. To the class. Gasps rippled through the room. A draconian cub, bred from a lineage of conquerors, lowering his head before a human. It was unthinkable. And yet, here it was. Kareem gave only a small nod, as if it were nothing. He sat back down, his expression calm, his notes waiting for him like the interruption had never happened. Thank you, Instructor. Please continue. But nothing was the same. Shalane caught Kareem's eye, silently mouthing a single word. How? Kareem's reply was a whisper carried just far enough, because sometimes peace requires the shadow of war. From that moment, the humans of the Academy no longer walked its halls as tolerated guests. They were seen with wary respect, the kind reserved for sleeping dragons. Every glance, every whisper carried a new weight. The humans had revealed a truth that could not be unseen. They were small, yes, but never weak. The balance inside Classroom 7 Alpha had shifted, and the galaxy would feel the echo. Word of what happened in Classroom 7 Alpha didn't stay within four walls. Stories have a way of traveling, especially ones that shake old certainties. By evening, whispers raced through the Academy's corridors. By morning, they echoed across embassies and council chambers. The tale was simple, but powerful. A draconian cub growled at a teacher, and a human told him to apologize. And he did. To many, it sounded unbelievable. Yet those who were present swore every detail was true. Among species who respected strength, the meaning was clear. Humans might be young, but their survival carried a weight older than technology. To others, more peace-loving races, humanity suddenly looked less fragile, less in need of protection. They were not just participants in the Academy, they were potential guardians of it. And beyond the walls of learning, leaders listened closely. The Galactic Council had debated for years whether humanity deserved full membership. Some argued the species wasn't ready. Others feared what their unpredictable nature might bring. But now, the question shifted. If one young human could humble a draconian in open class, what would humanity achieve when speaking for Earth itself? The ripples of that single moment were just beginning. In the quiet of the faculty lounge, Instructor Vexathala updated her files. Her hand trembled only slightly as she wrote one line. Humanity&AlienWars application for full Galactic Council membership. Expedite, without delay. For centuries, the Academy had been a place where old powers measured newcomers by ancient standards. But that day proved something different. Humans weren't just passengers in the great story of the galaxy. They were contenders, shaped by a history of survival, capable of commanding respect even from those who had once ruled empires. The students who witnessed it never forgot. To some, the memory was awe. To others, unease. But all agreed on one thing. Humanity could no longer be dismissed. The human presence at the Academy wasn't tolerated out of courtesy anymore. It was acknowledged out of necessity. And Kareem? He returned to his notes as if nothing had happened. Because to him, it wasn't about pride. It was about protecting peace. even if that meant standing as a reminder of war. Sometimes it only takes one voice to change how a galaxy listens. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video. It helps more people discover it. Subscribe for more tales where humanity proves why it should never be underestimated. And share it with a friend who loves stories that remind us. We might be small, but we are never weak.